It's my pleasure to introduce, back in Britain from the United States, ladies and gentlemen, Dusty Springfield. Why are you wearing that veil? Are you in mourning because you're being interviewed by me?
No, I'm in mourning because of all the dates we had to cancel in the provinces.
I know, I read about that in the
went to the funeral. This is my funeral attire, to cover my shame.
I mean, why was it you didn't sell enough tickets is what it amounted to?
That's really what it's about. The point is that when you go out on a tour, you present yourself on a tour, you give people a choice. They either want to come or they don't want to come, and I hereby want to say that it was not my idea to cancel the dates, and the London ones are still on. But I want to say to the people who booked here and in Manchester, if you all come down to Drury Lane, I'll give you a big hug and a kiss afterwards. And for those people who weren't interested in booking tickets, they can sit on it, actually.
But why do you think it happened, Dusty? I mean, is it simply because people haven't heard you sing for so long, or is it because music styles change as the years go by?
I think I'll take this off now.
Yes, I wish you would. It's bothering me.
Yeah.
Because the pop world is notoriously fickle.
Well, yes, but fickle. The last time I did a tour in the provinces was about, heavens, 8 years ago, so you can't expect to come waltzing back from Los Angeles and expect people to remember. Yeah. You have to be more visible. I think we sort of learned our lesson, being myself and the promoters. You can't just do that. You know, it's odd, though, because it worked in London. Drury Lane is sort of almost sold out. And for some reason it didn't work in Manchester, and it didn't work in Birmingham, and it didn't work in Bristol, and it didn't work blah, 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 blah.
You see, you committed the sin of actually quitting the business for a while. So, I mean, you can't really expect to come back at the same level of popularity. A comeback is always tougher.
I don't expect to. I expect to come back at a different level, you know, in a different place. And that takes some time to achieve. The point is that I'm sure if people have jobs that they become increasingly bored with, if they don't have the responsibilities of a family to look after, if you get cheesed off enough, you're going to stop and try and find another job. But that's not allowed if you're a singer. And it was a decision that was very hard for me to make, and I didn't make it lightly.
And is that why you quit? Because you were bored?
It was because I didn't enjoy it anymore, and I don't have a family to support, and I have 3 cats to support, but cat food isn't that much. And so I felt that it was wise for me to just stop for a while, yeah.
I used to be a roving reporter travelling around the country 7 days a week, and I used to rattle up and down on railway trains and look out at night over the lights of towns and sometimes think, what on earth am I doing this for? What a lousy way to make a living. And I read a newspaper interview where you said precisely that, exactly the same thing.
Yeah, it is an odd feeling. But I know I've learned enough about myself to know that as I used to sit going to Blackpool, going to Bolton, going wherever I was, it seemed to be every Sunday, that I would look in those windows and wish that I were in there having my tea, 5 o'clock Sunday afternoon. And then I knew that if I had been in there having my tea, I'd want to be on the train. So
you need the excitement anyhow?
Yeah, I really am a perverse person.
Is that why you moved to Los Angeles? Did you think that would give you the kind of excitement you couldn't find here?
Well, I was brought up on a steady diet of Hollywood films, like so many of us, and the era that I was brought up in, there were a lot of old 20th Century Fox musicals, and they were all part of my dream to go to Los Angeles, because that's where it was happening. I never intended to be a movie star or anything like that. It's just that I wanted to be there. I'm crazy about New York, but since the center of the recording industry is now in Los Angeles, and my management was there, it didn't seem like a bad idea at the time.
And was it like the movies? I mean, did it fulfill your expectations?
No, it's actually just, they call it a dream factory, and it is. It's a series of factories in which they make things for us to look at. It's a very quiet city. People seem to be asleep by 11 o'clock every night. I mean, I always thought it would be a wild place to live. It's actually very, very quiet. It's very pleasant, but it's just that you can't go out in the street and say taxi, and you can't get a bus. Everywhere, they don't have any real transport system. So everywhere you have to drive, and the distances are quite acute. I mean, people, you can drive 30 miles to go to the supermarket, you know.
Oh, right. I once got a bus from one end of Los Angeles to the other. It took 4 hours.
Oh, I believe it.
Just getting across town.
I know.
Because it's really 7 towns, isn't it, rolled into one?
Oh, I don't know. I think it's tiny little cities. They call an area like West Bromwich a city, you know, and it's city after city after city it runs in, and it's 31 miles long by 40 miles wide. Which looks wonderful from an aeroplane, incidentally, at night.
Yeah, the starburst.
Yeah, it's a real fairyland.
It's funny, I mean, we tend to think of it as being a free and easy lifestyle. I wonder why it is that it tends to go to sleep so early, because you're quite right, it does do that.
I think it comes from the days in the beginning of making films when, I mean, if you've got to get up at 4:30 to have a 5 o'clock call to put your face on for a film, you're not liable to be up all night. So the whole thing just closes down fairly early.
So it was the Hollywood syndrome there.
Yeah, they've never got over it, you know, even though filmmaking has moved elsewhere now.
It's funny, I once was chatting to Ray Milland, you know, who's quite an elderly man now, but was one of the great heartthrobs in the golden days of Hollywood. And I said to him, what a life you must have led, you know, when you were the big face on the screen. And he said, I only went out once a week on a Saturday night. He said I was up at 5 o'clock every morning to go to work.
Yeah, you can't survive, and I mean, there are people who try to do both, live that kind of life and play at the same time, but eventually catches up with them.
So what about your lifestyle? Is it a fast and zany lifestyle out there? Or what do you do? What do you do for leisure?
For leisure, I like to eat. It's a major problem. I like food very much. I like to explore new restaurants. It's always a battle of the bulge with me, to struggle to keep in shape. Because my idea of a good night is to go out with pleasant company and really find a good restaurant. And I don't very much like to go to parties. I never have. I went through one period of my life where I was a party girl, but I got over that.
Yeah, because those Los Angeles parties are anything but free and easy. They're very regimented, aren't they? Everything has to be absolutely right.
Yes, they're either very status conscious. I mean, you wear a pair of jeans. They say, come dress California casual, means you probably paid $500, which is $250 for your outfit, to look as though you're dressed in a pair of blue jeans. And everybody checks out exactly what you're wearing. And they're all very insecure, and they all feel they've got to do everything exactly right, whereas over here we don't care because we've been here longer, you know. And, you know, we don't have to put those pretensions up that they do there. They're very, very insecure.
You mentioned your cats before, and I noticed when you arrived tonight you had a sort of little cat badge on your lapel. How many cats have you got?
Well, I've only got 3 now, but I used to have 9.
9?
Yeah, and I'd take in everyone that wandered by, given half a chance. They find me. In the house that I'm staying in London, I thought I was going crazy because I lost my glasses on the plane, and I can't see that much ahead of me. So the first night, I was up because the jet lag kind of makes your hours go strange, and I heard this wow outside, and I thought, I'm hearing things, I'm going crazy. And for 3 nights, I still hadn't found my glasses, and this cat found me, and it seemed like just he and I were the only people up in the entire city of London. We had a long conversation.
And what about the cats at home? I mean, where are they now?
Oh, they're in a place called Blackford's Hotel for Cats, which is an amazing place. It's where they've got
a hotel for cats.
Hotel, yeah. I'm like sending them to boarding kennels where, you know, you've got 400 howling Alsatians all frightening the cats into the corners. They have a place that's totally for cats, and they have a chef, and they get fried chicken. And it's like James Stewart's cat has to have 4 slices of streaky bacon, but they've got to be very crisp and placed exactly parallel on the plate, otherwise they won't eat them.
You're putting me on here. This place actually exists?
Yes, it does. It's incredible. I saw it was on the news the other day. There's this woman, you know, she's the chef with a hat and holding. She's got all these bowls, and each cat cage has a clipboard on the outside, and it says the idiosyncrasies of each cat. My cat's like melon, donuts, pizza, French fries, all the things they're not supposed to eat. They're hideously spoiled.
You couldn't check me in for a couple of weeks out there.
I'm serious. Yes, I'll join you.
For this British winter.
Yes, I tell you, I might join you.
What is it about cats? I mean, why not dogs? Why do you go for cats particularly?
First of all, I think they're amazingly beautiful animals and very sensual creatures, and they have an elegance. I mean, they get up in the morning and they look great. You know, I envy them. They just look that way all the time, and they're very comic and they're very affectionate. And unlike people genuinely think they don't give out much affection, but they do. They're very loving, and they can see right through people. They can see a phony straight away. A dog kind of goes, hi, and a dog will just stare, a cat will just stare you down if they know you're a phony.
I mean, some people really cannot stand cats in the way that they can't stand spiders or mice or whatever.
I think it's from the centuries of the cats being tied in with witchcraft and all that supernatural bit, and there was a time when if you harbored a cat, you got burned at the stake. And they used to...
You wouldn't have lasted very long, would you?
No, I wouldn't. Definitely not lasted long. And they used to brick cats up. It was a sign of good luck to put a live cat in France in the fireplace and then brick it up.
Is that right?
Yeah, that was how they that's how they blessed a house.
How long ago was that?
Oh, in the Middle Ages. But when the plague came along and they realized that cats were good rat catchers, then the cat got, accepted again. And in Egypt from ancient times, if you hurt a cat, you had your head cut off, which I think is a highly civilized thing to do.
I mean, people are cruel to cats now. I mean, I think it's an appalling thing, for example, to have a cat neutered. That seems a terrible thing, a distasteful thing to do.
I know there's a lot of controversy about that. I mean, people always say they want their children to see the miracle of birth, and let her have kittens and let the tongue cat out and have a good time. But it really isn't very kind at all, because litter after litter after litter is born, and they have more litters, and in the end there are strays all over the place, and they die of starvation and of hideous diseases.
Well, I mean, you think they should be neutered?
Of course they should.
Unless
you know absolutely that you can find good homes. I beg your pardon?
I wouldn't dare repeat that, he'll kill me.
Please. What did I miss?
Let me change the subject.
Yes, all right. I missed that. You tell me afterwards.
Okay. You used to have a reputation for throwing things at people. I read that you threw a fruitcake at some poor defenseless... Well, no, it wasn't a waiter. It was some man playing the fiddle in the background who'd really done nothing at all to anybody.
Yeah, that was most unkind. It was in New York, and it was in the Palm Court, and I was with people I just didn't like. But luckily, it wasn't the violinist's fault. It's just he was playing so badly, and I took the whole cake stand, and luckily it fell off the cake stand before it reached him, because it was really unkind. The kind of things I used to do, I don't do anymore. I must be losing my flair with it.
I might just move these out of the way.
Yes, you might. And these, thank you. The fan club gave me these. These are absolutely beautiful.
Yes,
thank you very much. Suitable for a funeral. They're very lovely. What were you saying?
I was going to say, that a lot of British stars have moved out to America to live. People like Michael Caine and Engelbert Humperdinck and Tom Jones.
Yeah.
They've gone for tax reasons or work reasons or whatever. And I keep reading interviews with them in which they talk nostalgically about leafy lanes and country pubs and summer puddings, and it's quite clear that they really wish they were over here. Now, does that never happen to you?
Oh, often. But most particularly when they show Wimbledon fortnight, that really gets to me, because they have almost the same camera shops as the BBC do, and they sort of zoom in on the ivy-covered halls of Wimbledon, and I get all teary because I really miss that. I mean, I remember my whole life used to come to a halt for 2 weeks, and I'd watch it just non-stop because they have tremendous coverage here. They're not quite as good about the coverage in the States.
And you were always a tennis fan?
Yes, I'm the world's worst player and the world's best spectator.
I asked that question deliberately because the song I'm going to ask you to sing is rather appropriate.
And ironic.
Or rather ironic, yes, depending on how you look at it. But it's a new song.
Yeah.
Well, tell me about it.
It's actually, it's ironic because things have gone slightly wrong. The song is called I'm Coming Home Again. It was made last year, long before I knew I was coming home again. And it's kind of has to be sung with a sense of humor now, I think.
Well, I'm anxious to hear it. Ladies and gentlemen, Dusty Springfield.
Some of my devils up and left me free to find find a quiet space. I'm not as out of place. I'm not as lonely as I was before. I don't go in unless there's an open door to leave by. I'm starting to believe my own existence has a right to be. I'm coming home again. It's been